and welcome to the Press Room with WCN-TV, brought to you by the Wilson County News. We're your source for community and communication. I'm your host, Julia, the Marketing and Social Media Specialist here at the Wilson County News. Today, we're talking in depth about topics we presented in recent editions of the Wilson County News, including the Children's Alliance of South Texas and their 2022 Christmas campaign, East Central ISD's $240 million bond proposal, which was approved by voters in the November 8th election, and reflecting on Veterans Day with a local veteran and WCN reporter. You can subscribe to print, digital, or both editions of the Wilson County News at wilsoncountynews.com/subscribe, so you never miss an edition of your local newspaper. Feel free to follow us where you're watching today, so you're always up to date on the Press Room and our other WCN-TV news. CAST, or the Children's Alliance of South Texas, is a child advocacy center that has provided services to children and their non-offending caregivers since October of 2013. Now they're launching a Christmas campaign to benefit children in need. Bonnie Ramirez, the development director at CAST, is here to tell us about their campaign. Welcome to the show, Bonnie.
Good morning, Julia. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So what is the Children's Alliance of South Texas?
So, Children's Alliance of South Texas, acronym CAST, C-A-S-T. We are a child advocacy center, and we are a nonprofit organization. We're actually Wilson County's local child advocacy center. You'll hear us refer to that as a CAC for short. But we actually cover the 5 counties in the 81st Judicial District. So Wilson being one of them, Karnes, Atascosa, Frio, and LaSalle. And in a nutshell, what we do is we provide free services to abused children. And when I say abused children, I mean in any realm of what abuse may be, whether that be sexual, that be physical, that be victims of crime, that be malnourishment, any kind of abuse. So any children in our judicial district that we serve, we would serve them, provide services to them, and they're non-offending caregivers. And like I said, all the services are free, from the forensic interviews that we work with our multidisciplinary team, law enforcement, CPS, and advocacy services and resources, right. And then of course our counseling services, which some of them include art therapy.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah. So that's who CAST Children's Alliance of South Texas is.
All right. So what is your Christmas campaign?
So our Christmas campaign is called A December to Remember. It's an annual thing that the Children's Alliance of South Texas does for our children's Christmas. What we do, and we have about 100-ish, give or take. I'm still counting, so don't hold me to it. But we have about 100 kiddos right now that are on our list, and families, including families. We ask them, it's kind of like their little Christmas wish list, right. Pretend you're sending this to Santa. What are your wants, your needs, and your likes? And that truly can range from, they could say they want a Nintendo, or, right. Different Fortnite games, or the little squishy, what are they called?
Squishmallows?
That's it. Yes. It could range to books, it could be clothing,
right.
It could be Amazon gift cards, it could be Barbies, dollhouses, horses, whatever it may be. So we ask them that. We take down their information. Of course, the children's information is confidential, but we ask for their shoe size, their pant size, their shirt size, and then ultimately from there, what we do is we ask sponsors. That's what we're asking you guys for. We ask for sponsors to basically sponsor a child's wish list, for lack of better words. And I mean, they don't have to buy everything on their wish list, because that's just an idea of what that they would like. But ideally, we would love for it to have maybe one of their wants, one of their likes, and one of their needs. And then we ask them to bring it to us to whatever. So with all the 5 counties that we serve, we'll try our very best to pair all the sponsors with the community that they're at. So say you wanted a sponsor, right. We'll put you in Wilson County to sponsor. I live in Karnes, I sponsor somebody from Karnes. I mean, that's not how it's going to work out logistically, all said and done, but that's what we try. They can be in bags, but we prefer, or we ask that they be not wrapped up.
Right.
And December 9th, I think it's a Friday, if my memory serves me correct, we're asking that all donations all the gifts be brought to whatever closest office is theirs, whether it's our Floresville office, our Pleasanton office, or our Cordula office.
Okay.
So, so that's
Wow.
we're excited about it, and we're planning to have a little Christmas get together for the kiddos too, for them and their families to come and pick up the gifts, and we'll have like hot chocolate and Christmas cookies and snacks and candy canes, just kind of giving them a little Christmas, spread some cheer and joy, and bring some smiles to their faces for sure.
That is so sweet. All right. Now, when do y'all need the information about who wants to sponsor what?
So the sooner the better. So what my timeline is that we've kind of worked with all, internal, just because there's a lot of pieces to make it all work.
Right.
So what we're asking, so basically if somebody wants to sponsor, they'll contact me by phone or email. Email is probably best because I can give them the exact information that I need versus a phone call. Basically, I just need basic information from them. Email is the primary method of communication because I'll pair them up with their kid and send them correspondence that way.
Right.
But just let me know, and then my intentions are to have everybody paired up and give the sponsors, the child or the family that they're sponsoring, information before Black Friday.
Okay.
So by or before November 22nd.
Right.
Basically before Black Friday, so that way, maybe some of those things are on sale for Black Friday, and something that might be $100 might be $25 or $40, so it might be more affordable.
For the person who's gifting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. So yeah, if that's the intention, the sooner the better that sponsors could reach out to us so we can get everybody on our list paired up.
Y'all need like 100.
Yes, and probably a little, if my numbers are right, I got to go back and count everything. But it's going to be a little over 100 that we have that will match up, and we don't want anybody to feel burdened. They don't have to do a whole family, but some have opted to, like, hey, we want to do a whole family, whether that be 2 or that be 6. So that's an option too. And other things that we're telling our sponsors is, you have a budget, let me know. So we, like, if their budget is $50, $100, $500, no budget type deal, then it helps us pair them up with the right wish list.
Right. So you're not going to give someone whose budget is $50 the kid who wanted a Nintendo.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
That makes so much sense.
Yes.
Okay.
So
for those that may see this later and want to sponsor someone, but y'all sponsorship spots are filled up, are there still ways that they can gift kids in the community?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. There's always different opportunities. We'll run different campaigns, initiatives throughout the year. This happens to be our Christmas one, and it's a big one. I mean, for maybe some, this might be the only Christmas gifts that they get.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that that's the case for all of them, but it's possible. So we really try to go just all out and bring cheer and spread joy and just kindness and all that. So, but not to worry if they find out about the Christmas campaign later, and even if we have all of them sponsored and paired up with a donor, still reach out to me, because there might be different, even if it's something like, well, you know what, we actually had this wish list that they got maybe some likes in their needs, but they didn't get the want. Like, if you want to sponsor something towards that and give $10, $25, $50 towards it, we can add in that additional gift to that child's wish list. So yeah, definitely for sure. Don't reach out to me, because I'm sure that we'll find creative ways to be able to make all of our children's Christmas special, and their families as well. And then non-Christmas wise, like let's say they find out this about after Christmas, so they can volunteer. Always looking for volunteers. We do have fundraisers. We can use volunteers for fundraisers as well, or just attending, participating in the fundraisers. Word of mouth. That's something free and easy, but that's a great way for the community to get involved. It's once you get behind our mission and what we do and what we do for the community and just the communities, all the 5 counties that we serve, it's easy just to fall in love and be passionate about who the Children's Alliance of Texas is, right? So just the word of mouth, even if it's just following our social media channels, sharing it on their personal pages, telling people about us, and hoping that stirs up interest in either volunteer opportunities or donor opportunities as well. so that way it helps with, us fulfilling
Yeah.
our mission. So,
And so to clarify, y'all are a 501c3.
yes, we're a nonprofit. Yes, and we are we are heavily funded by grants, but we also have to have
Donation.
yes, to be able to suffice and be able to, for lack of better words, kind of match those grants. So,
Right.
yes.
My next question is, where can folks find more information about the Children's Alliance of South Texas, and even follow along with your Christmas campaign?
So we do actually have an office here in Floresville, like skip, hop, and a jump away from here. If anybody was interested in getting more information, they're certainly welcome to reach out to me. I'm happy to give them information. If they have a group, like if there is a civic organization that would like more information about us and would like a tour of our office, I can certainly arrange that with our local staff. Call me, email me. I'm happy to send them information. We have our website. Like I mentioned earlier, our social media channels. We have our Facebook and Instagram. We try our very best to have a very strong presence on there with pictures, videos, but also providing, sadly, the uncomfortable statistics and education of child abuse and just ways to recognize, prevent it, reporting, what leads to another thing. So any schools, daycares, any programs that deal with children, I would say programs, organizations, whatever it may be, we are available to provide a free training. It's a 1-hour training, and it is basically recognizing and reporting child abuse. Also keep up with Wilson County News, because y'all have done an amazing job with just anything that we reach out to y'all for, with the publicity and joining us for our recent trunk or treat. I know Wilson was there, so that was awesome. That was really cool. So thank you guys for that. But keeping up with you guys, because I know you all run all of our initiatives and have been very gracious in hosting us. But we're a phone call away.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Mrs. Julian. Thank you guys. If you all find it in your heart to be a sponsor for our Christmas campaign, A December to Remember, please reach out to me. Not just we, but the children and their non-offending caregivers would be extremely, extremely grateful. So, yes, please help us make their Christmas a very special one and one to remember.
Election Day was Tuesday, November 8th, and one of the items on the ballot for citizens in the East Central Independent School District was the district's proposed $240 million bond. In a press release on November 9th, the school district announced that their bond proposal was approved by voters. Here today to talk about the bond, the outcome of the election, and what it means for the district is East Central ISD Superintendent Roland Toscano. Welcome to the press room.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Of course. So who are you and what do you do at East Central ISD?
I'm Roland Toscano, and I'm the Superintendent of Schools in East Central ISD.
Very cool. And I hear that you're also an alumnus of...
I am.
Wow.
I graduated in 1991 from East Central High School.
So cool.
Yeah, and I've spent 26 years as a professional educator in East Central in many different roles.
That is awesome. So what is a school bond? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so school bonds are authorized by the state of Texas for school districts to sell in order to do capital improvements. Typically, bonds are sold in order to raise revenue to purchase land, to build new facilities, or to renovate existing facilities.
Okay, interesting. And who does the bond get sold to?
They're an investment that is highly sought after by investors because of some tax breaks that they get. And so they're generally offered at really competitive rates. They're really good value for taxpayers.
That makes sense. So why did East Central ISD propose its $240 million bond this year?
Yeah, so there's 5 challenges that we're attempting to solve. And the majority of the bond, in fact, over 80% of it, is going to build new schools.
Okay.
So we are projected to double in size by 2030. We've already seen almost 700 new students this year, and several of our schools are beginning to reach or exceed capacity. And so in order to address capacity, again, 82% roughly of this bond is going to go towards 2 new elementary schools and a new middle school. In addition to that, safety and security obviously was lifted up as a a priority in our community, as is the case in all communities across Texas. And so we want to continue to round out all of our schools with secure entry vestibules. In 2016, we were able to begin phasing in that project program, but the community spoke and said we want to accelerate that and take care of all of our schools. In addition to that, with the increased traffic that comes with the development, we're seeing increased traffic around our schools during pickup drop-off times. We're seeing increased traffic around the interstates adjacent to our schools and some of the high traffic areas like Military Drive, Southeast Military Drive, etc. And so in the interest of safety, in addition to safety vestibules, we're going to improve drop-off pickup conditions on several of our campuses to relieve traffic out in the community adjacent to our schools. And the third challenge is comparability. As we're growing and adding new schools, the board has been committed to making sure that every school has comparable amenities. In other words, learning spaces, furniture, instructional technology teachers have access to, safety and security measures, gymnasiums, libraries, lighting conditions, air quality conditions, ADA accessibility, all of those things are comparable. So it doesn't matter if a school's 50 years old or brand new, the children and their staff that serve them should have comparable amenities.
Absolutely.
The fourth challenge is career and technology. And that is that in the East Central community, our citizens expect our children to graduate academically prepared for whatever it is they want to do after K-12, but equally as important that they're employable. And so career and technology is the way that we do that at the high school level and actually begins in junior high. And this is how kids can begin to explore what they're interested in. So career exploration, if you will. But then they can get pretty clear about what of those interests that they actually are good at. And then they can learn about the economy and actually learn about the earning potential, so that by the time they graduate, they've taken a program of study or two where they actually had field-based experience, earned industry certification, that they can actually go to work while they're continuing their education in the same trajectory, right? So they're doing work in a field for which they're continuing their education. And so we have 3 career and technology facilities, shops, if you will, at the high school. They're filled 7 periods a day. All labs are filled, and so we cut kids out of many of our programs because of space. So this particular CTE facility will house 2 of our most in-demand programs at East Central High School, but also 2 sectors of the local San Antonio economy that are paying very well, and the job prospects are, for the foreseeable future available. And that is health professions and construction trades. And then the 5th challenge that we're trying to solve is transportation and support facilities. And so we're doubling in size. Our transportation needs are going to double in size, and our current transportation facility was built in 1977 when we had 4,500 students. We currently have 10,500, and we'll have 20,000 by the end of this decade. And so our fleet's going to double in size, and we don't have space for it. So we're going to build a new transportation facility on Highway 87 to grow into. That will allow us to use our current transportation facility as a district warehouse, which we currently do not have a warehouse. We lease a facility on W.W. White Road. And then the front of the current transportation facility, the office spaces will be retrofitted into a new police headquarters. And that's where our police officers and our police department will be housed. And so now that the bond is passed, we're ready to get to work.
What are the school district's next moves to get to work?
Yeah, so we've got a comprehensive project program timeline that is intended to kind of take advantage of times that we're in school and out of school, also coordinate the types of projects that we can do simultaneously so that we can get the project program done in a 3.5 to 4 year time frame when those facilities need to be provided because of the growth that we're experiencing, but also so that we can sell bonds in multiple sales. So depending on the scope of work that we're doing in phase 1, we would only sell those bonds, because then the tax impact is distributed over time incrementally as opposed to all at once. And in this particular case, there'll be no tax impact for the first 2 years. Year 3, there'll be a 3-cent impact. In year 4, by the end of the project program, there'll be an additional 3-cent impact for a total of 6 cents. And so we're starting with where the needs are immediately, and that is building North Elementary School to relieve the overpopulated Tradition Elementary School, where we've now added portables because of overcrowding. We'll also begin the renovations at our 2 existing junior highs. Again, for comparability, we want them to have the amenities that our new middle school is going to have. And in addition to that, we're going to start construction on the CTE facility. And so by the end of year 1 next year, all of those project programs, with the exception of school will open in the fall of 2024. So that's what we're going to get working on immediately. Again, with the rest of the scope coming over the course of the project program.
You're being very conservative in your approach with using their money in a very conservative way, is what I'm getting.
Very conservative, very strategic way to maximize what we can do with the resources that we have. East Central ISD has the lowest school tax rate in Bexar County, and has for quite a while. Even at the end of this project program, East Central ISD school tax rate will still be either the lowest or among the lowest in Bexar County and surrounding areas, which is about 19 school districts.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah. What will the bond change for your district going forward as you address that community growth and the need for change?
We'll be adding schools in some regions of the district that we've never had schools in proximity to some of the neighborhoods and families that live in that area. Right. So the Graytown Road area is around 1518, 1604, I-10 corridor, and currently those children that live on the other side of 1604 have to cross 1604, get to 1346, and head to Tradition, which is better than having to go across Highway 87 to John Glenn where they used to. Right. So this brings a community school closer to the neighborhoods that are going to be feeding it. Same thing on the south side of the district. That second elementary school is going to actually be on 181 in 1604, which is pretty close to Floresville. Yeah. It is going to be in Hickory Ridge, which most of that subdivision, 4,500 homes when built out, is in East Central ISD. Part of it, a small part of it, is in Floresville ISD. So we'll actually have a pre-K to 5 elementary school in Elmendorf, which is for the first time in our history, us having a school that proximal to that community and the developing neighborhoods in that surrounding community is going to be a change for us. Absolutely. And it's going to be a much needed change. We'll also have a 3rd junior high, like I said before. So now we've got the ability for children in all areas of the community to be in their neighborhood school, pre-K to 5, that is in proximity to where they live. And then adjacent to that elementary school, our model includes a junior high. So currently, where our other junior highs are, the children would go to Salado, for example, and then Legacy Middle School on relatively the same property, so pre-K all the way through 8th grade, without having to leave an area of their community. And then Oakcrest and Heritage, same kind of scenario. And then when the 3rd junior high is built, it'll be the same at Tradition and the new middle school in St. Hedwig, where we've got these abilities for families to stay in their neighborhood or their area of the community from pre-K all the way through 8th grade.
That is so awesome, especially from that community connection standpoint.
Yep.
Wow. So where can folks learn more about East Central ISD and your plans going forward?
Yeah, so following us on all of our social media is one way. Going to our website, www.ecisd.net, you'll find tabs that talk about our district growing. We have banners across the top as well. That'll take you to our bond and construction page, and it'll showcase what we have done in our long-range strategic plan dating back to 2016's bond program, where all of that scope of work was done with intentionality and a long-range need assessment in mind. And so anybody who wants to learn more about where we've been and where we're going and why can get that information on our website. And of course, as we continue moving forward with this project program, we'll keep our community engaged, but also completely aware of how things are progressing, what the current condition is. We're going to be updating the demographic study this year. As we become a fast growth community, We've had to engage a demographer more frequently so we understand where development is, what its impact is going to be on our enrollment in all of our schools, and what that could mean for us in future capacity needs.
Wow. Was there anything else that you wanted to mention before we end?
Just that we're very grateful for the community's support of this bond program. We also are very grateful for a large number of citizens and parents who really got engaged in the research, in the identification of needs, and in the communication to their friends, families, and neighbors in the East Central community about what those needs are and why. And so we're just very thankful, again, for the East Central community, for those who were really involved firsthand, and again, excited about the implications for the East Central community and its children immediately and into the future.
It's all very exciting. So thank you so much for coming on our show today and sharing that wonderful news.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Veterans Day was Friday, November 11th, and was celebrated throughout the Wilson County community as folks got together to honor all those who have served. If you're a regular reader of the Wilson County News, you may be familiar with the name Gregory Ripps. He's a reporter at the WCN, but he's also a retired Air National Guard Master Sergeant. Today, he's joining us on the press room to reflect on what his military service means to him. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We're glad to have you. So how long have you been a reporter at the Wilson County News?
I have been here almost exactly 8 years now. I actually started out as a correspondent. Decided to come work here when my dad was living at the Veterans Home, and I thought I'd see if maybe I could be part of this team.
And you've made a wonderful addition to our team.
Well, thank you.
Of course. So do you have any other writing experience prior to being here?
Oh, yes. Starting with a little neighborhood newspaper that I put out as a teenager.
Wow.
But more seriously, I went to work for a newspaper in 1972, a weekly newspaper, and then a couple of years later went to another newspaper, and ended up doing a lot of production work. Got away from writing. However, in my parallel career with the National Guard, I became a public affairs specialist. So
Wow.
I got into a bunch of writing that way again.
That makes sense. So you just mentioned the branch of the military you served in. So when did you join, and how long did you serve the Air National Guard?
I joined in March of 1972, and this was the Air National Guard, and I served for 38 and a half years.
Wow.
Uniquely, almost all of it was not on active duty.
Really?
I was never called to active duty for a period of 90 days or more for purposes other than training.
Right.
So, in a sense, I was never called to war. But that was the National Guard's decision, not mine.
Right.
For 7 years, I did work full-time for the Texas National Guard as what they call a military technician, which is sort of like civil service, but staying in uniform. And I was up at Camp Mabry in Austin for most of that time. And I learned to work with the Army National Guard, which is about 80% of the National Guard in Texas. And this prepared me for a job that I took as I approached a mandatory retirement from the Air National Guard and taking a job with an Army brigade at Fort Sam Houston, and I was the public affairs officer as a civilian for that organization for 5 years.
Wow.
Before I retired from both military and civilian service.
Well, what motivated you to serve in the military?
I was interested in serving in the military first as a little kid, in between wanting to be a cowboy and a fireman. But I had, of course, my dad worked in the aircraft industry building Catalina flying boats and B-25 bombers. Then he joined the Air National Guard in 1950, just before the Korean War.
Wow.
And they zipped him off to pre-deployment training without even going through basic training. And so he was gone for 2 years, which were like the first 2 years of my life.
Wow.
And he remained in the National Guard, this being the 149th Fighter Wing at what was then Kelly Air Force Base, until he retired at the age of 60. So in a sense, I followed his footsteps.
Right.
But I took a kind of a circumlocuitous route to get there.
And how so?
Well, I also had a grandfather who was fought in World War One, and I had a step great grandfather who was a colonel in the Army Veterinary Corps. So I also looked upon them as examples of what I would try to do. And so I went through 4 years of junior ROTC in high school. But I was discouraged because it seemed like those who wanted to rise in rank had to shout loud and find the most fault with the cadets in their unit. And so I decided maybe that wasn't the route for me. So I decided I would pursue a teaching career. I had a student deferment, this being during the Vietnamese War. And toward the end of my 4th year, I get a notice from the Army to report for a physical. This was a year after my mother had died, and my paternal grandmother, my dad's mother, also died. And I had taken the notice somewhat, fatalistically. I thought, well, if this is where I'm going to go, this is what I'm going to do. But Dad said, there's no way I'm going to take a chance on losing you. I want you to go down and enlist in the Air National Guard.
Right.
So that's exactly what I did. And when the Army called me up, I showed them a piece of paper that I'd already enlisted in the Air National Guard.
Right.
And like within 2 weeks after graduation from college, I went into the Air National Guard. And I thought, well, 6 years and I'll probably go a different direction. But a strange thing was that it seemed like I always decided to stay in a little bit longer. And then after I hit 20 years, which would guarantee me some kind of retirement, I decided to keep going. I realized I would really miss the activity, the camaraderie,
Yeah.
and the helpful training that you receive, which is not necessarily that similar to what you do in civilian life.
What lessons did you learn from your military service that you still carry in life today? You just mentioned some that you might not see in ordinary, civilian life.
Well, the advantage of the National Guard, whether it's Army or Air Force, is that you're basically a civilian, but you learn military terminology and to a certain degree military thinking. So you have a foot in both camps, and when people get in discussions about different things, you can see both sides of it. I think there are a lot of incidental things that I don't think about that have been things that I picked up from the military.
Right.
The way I stand at the national anthem or the Pledge of Allegiance, to that sense of my surroundings when I am somewhere. Not always, especially if you're in a crowded situation, you start thinking, if something were to happen, where would I go? Where would I take my family?
Yeah.
What would I do to combat whatever this situation is? That's definitely one thing that was instilled into me that I'm happy to carry with me now. I have to say, sometimes it makes me enjoy myself less when I'm around crowds.
Yeah.
I remember watching a street musician or magician. There were musicians too in New Orleans, and of course the crowd was all focused on these performers, and I kept looking around, thinking, "Oh, what if there's somebody out here, picking pockets or that type of thing?" So you develop that sense of awareness. There are a lot of little things, and terminology that I've used with my daughter, like you need to show a sense of urgency, meaning I know you're getting ready, I know you're going to come with us, but can you just put a little more oomph into it so we can go.
Looking back on your years of service, what does it mean to you now?
I'm very honored to have been a part of the service and the people that I served with, and I know that there are people in the military who've done much more than I have, and those who made an active duty career often put themselves in places and situations of danger which I have been able to avoid. But I've always taken my role seriously and felt that I would be ready to do what was required of me. And that's always been my goal. I have been able to accompany elements of military units to Europe, specifically Poland and the Czech Republic. I've been able to go to Armenia with the civil engineering group, other places in the world. In Texas, of course, the National Guard is called out to respond to civil disasters, not just military matters, strictly speaking. And I've responded to floods and hurricanes, and even supported combating of fires, although I wasn't on the front lines of that, praise be. But yeah, I remember clearly after Hurricane Katrina. No, pardon me. This was after Katrina. This is Hurricane Rita, the second big hurricane that season, when we helped evacuate some senior citizens that had been removed from a nursing home and put into a school building when the storm threatened. And I was interviewing the woman in charge of the residents, and at the same time carrying out supplies to the buses which the National Guard had ready to take the patients away. And so I was doing two things at once, and that's the kind of thing that sticks with you, that makes you feel like you really helped accomplish something for someone.
That's amazing. All right. So, what does it mean to you to be a veteran?
It means a lot to me to be able to say that I'm a veteran. For some years, that definition of veteran did not extend to us, all of us that wore the military uniform for more than 20 years, but at the same time were never on active duty and receiving the valuable DD-214.
Right.
But some years ago there was legislation passed that did provide the qualification that we were veterans, at least in name. It didn't mean that we got any more benefits such as access to the Veterans Administration hospitals and whatnot. But it does honor our service, and I'm very happy that I can say that I'm a veteran, and I can salute with veterans at the appropriate ceremonies.
Do you see changes in the way that people today view the military?
Yes, I do. And I have to preface this by looking back over the decades a bit. In the 1970s, the war in Vietnam was winding down, and there, of course, were a lot of people who were against the war. I remember one time, as we were preparing to leave, we were given a briefing, and we were advised not to make any stops while we were in uniform. Don't get out of your car at a gas station or go to a convenience store, anything like that, because some people in military uniforms, who were by themselves usually, were actually attacked or spat upon or disrespected in a number of ways. And it wasn't until Desert Storm that I really knew that turned around. If you're not familiar with Desert Storm, well, that was our engagement in Southwest Asia in 1991. And I happened to go to a convention of the National Guard Association of Texas that year. And walking from the hotel to the place where we were meeting, some civilians walked up to us and shook our hands and said, you know, we really appreciate the military and what they're doing. So that sort of completely turned around from the situation that we had been in, not even 20 years previously. In the 70s, too, we were always using just secondhand equipment that the regular Air Force handed on to us after they finished with it. Starting in the 80s, we were able to get first-rate equipment, including fighter jet aircraft, and got into the computer business. I remember still late in the 80s, the main means of communication was with a typewriter.
Yeah.
And things built up. We had, good public relations. This started to fall apart again, and after a few years in Iraq and Afghanistan. But I think the institution of the military has continued to rank high among people's opinion. Now, here's where it gets a little difficult, because they always used to tell us, because we were part of the Air Force, that our jobs as an institution was to fly and fight. And those of us who weren't actively engaged in the flying and fighting were there to support it. But now it seems like it's to fly and fight and be careful of people's feelings. And that is what a number of veterans that I have talked to have shared with me, that they are glad that they were in the military when they were, and they feel that the current leadership is not emphasizing the important part of what it is to be in the military.
Well, thank you so much for your service, Greg, and for your time today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity of allowing me to share my story and a little opinion, too.
You're very welcome. That's all for today, folks. Thank you for tuning in to the Press Room with WCNTV, brought to you by the Wilson County News. For more information on anything we mentioned in today's show, see the November 9th edition of the Wilson County News or visit wilsoncountynews.com. You can also find the articles corresponding to each topic discussed today in this video's description. Remember to follow us where you're watching so you never miss an episode, and consider subscribing to receive the digital or print or both editions of the Wilson County News each week. You can find more news or subscribe at wilsoncountynews.com, or download our app, Go Wilson, to receive updates from our newsroom at your fingertips. The app is available for Apple and Android devices at gowilsonapp.com. We hope you'll tune in next week for another episode of The Press Room. We'll see you then!